Hey guys, this is Brad Allen, and welcome to Outdoor Asylum. We're here at the Cache River Studio in the Elite Duck Call Shop. Got producer Jake Seipert with me. Jake, how's it going, man?
Hey, doing good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, as always, I'm sure happy to be with me everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
Guys, joined by a very special guest today. This man really doesn't need much of an introduction. Absolutely, he's a great friend, number one. Number two, one of the best duck callers maybe ever walked the earth, in my opinion. Yeah, listen at him. He knows I'm buttering him up. This is Trey Crawford, three-time world champion and champion of champions. Trey, man, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this.
Yeah, I am too. You know, I know you. It's just like all the other guests I get on here. Man, I know these guys, but sometimes there's things I've never asked and things I don't know. So I enjoy the process of this. I learn something. No matter who I have in here, I learn something every time I get on here. So, man, you're all over the place. I had people tell me, man, have you heard from Trey lately? No, I hadn't. I don't know. I don't know where Trey is. Last he was in Kansas for a while. Here he's hunting in Montana a lot. What's the last place you've been mostly when it comes to hunting? You've been still going up around Montana mostly, or where you been?
Well, when I leave Canada, that's my next stop. Now, I haven't hunted Montana in the last 2 years due to the flooding of the Missouri River. Where we hunt it's off of Fort Peck Lake, which is east of Glasgow, and the Missouri River begins there. I mean, that's the dam off the lake creates the Missouri River, and for the last 2 years, it's just been so high you couldn't hunt it, man. It was dangerous, you know.
Wow.
Now, you could of course hunted dry ground, and we do some of that as well. But for the most part, we like to hunt that river, man. It's just it's a magnet. It is a magnet. And I think that's one of the biggest staging areas for mallards when they come out of Saskatchewan and Alberta. They gather by huge numbers, which is what I like.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then the lack of pressure is, I mean, it's non-existent. And you can go and hunt for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and never see another duck hunter. And you'll see plenty of guys in orange. You know, they're chasing elk, mule deer, whitetail, antelope, whatever. And it's very easy to get access to ground up there, because when you ask someone to hunt on their property, the first thing they ask, what are you hunting? Well, ducks and geese. Oh, yeah, go ahead. You know, they look at you like you're crazy.
Okay, I'm sold. Let's get in the truck. I'm going right now. I'm ready.
It's just a different, the whole thing up there is different. It's because of that place having so many birds, and then no one pressures them. And until it just gets bitter cold and locks everything up or covered up with snow, they stay. As a matter of fact, 3 years ago, I have a very close friend in Glasgow. Hey, Brandon. Anyway, he's a big hunter, a big duck hunter, and I hunted up until December 3rd. Well, I got there November 1st and then hunted till December 3rd, and we kept in close contact after I left. The birds that we were hunting in early December never left.
They didn't come to Arkansas.
No.
I know that.
They didn't. I mean, there were a lot that did leave, but there was still a nice number left, and he hunted them all the way into January. But they never left. They had no reason to leave. They had food, water, no pressure. So why would they leave? You know?
Yeah, no doubt. You know, talking about Montana, that's been a place that I've always wanted to see. I've never been there.
It is
love to see.
beautiful.
Oh, I know you see the pictures, and oh my gosh, I want to see it. But even saying I wanted to go there, I never really thought about waterfowl up there until you told me about it.
Right.
Because like I always think, number one, Montana. What do you think? Fly fishing, number
Exactly.
one, and then I'm
big
thinking like
game.
elk, big game, something like that. No, not thinking about Now, thinking about waterfowl, what are you mainly killing up there? Are we talking about mallards? Are we talking about geese? What are you getting after? What kind of
Mallards
species?
and Canada geese. There are no snows. Very few specks. Primarily mallard ducks. And I'll tell you something, and I'm going to give another shout out to my buddy Billy Rapp. What's up, Billy Rapp? And if you ask the man where he has ever seen the most mallard ducks in his entire life, he'll tell you Missouri River in Glasgow, Montana.
Wow.
True story.
Okay.
It was incredible. We actually were dry hunting a cornfield, and we sat after we killed our birds and watched for 2 hours, and it was just continuous. They never stopped, and could have stayed there all day and done that. I love that.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? But it was just the numbers. It's just a numbers game for both ducks and the lack of hunters.
Yeah.
You know, that's two beautiful things that come together and make a place that like that what it is. I mean, it's a special place.
Yeah.
Held close to my heart.
I can see that. You got me wanting to go now. I'm already thinking about when can I leave? When can I head up there?
Yeah.
Now, where do you hunt? You said you start in Canada. What area of Canada you normally start in?
Well, I started in Manitoba years ago and progressively moved west. Up until last year, I'd hunted Saskatchewan for 9 years, and I got an invite to help a friend in Alberta. And, man, I won't be going back to Saskatchewan.
You lucked Alberta's even better, huh?
Man, it's, again, the numbers thing.
Yeah.
And when we kill primarily mallards, but there are a lot of widgeon, pintail, not many snow geese. There's some, but not many. Lots of specks, a lot of little Canadas, big Canadas. And it wasn't a question of if you were going to get them. It was just how long would it take, you know? And it didn't matter what size group we took. They got their birds.
Yeah.
So that, again, that deal where there's no pressure. Now, this year may be different because I've got a feeling we're not going to get across the border this year.
Yeah, oh, man.
With this virus, you know, having the borders locked down, I don't know if we'll be able to get across the border. If so, we're good. If not, well, that means there's going to be a lot of birds that don't get shot in Canada, and then should result in a good flight south.
Yeah.
You know?
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah. Very good point. I hear a lot of stuff talking about some anti-gun legislation up there in Canada too. Where's that going?
Well, they passed a bill a little over a month ago, and it was primarily for long guns, with the exception of 20 gauge, because for whatever reason they have a designated size, millimeter size of a barrel's diameter that meets, I guess, their standards for possession of a legal firearm. But if it is more, a bigger diameter, it's considered illegal. Now, they're already getting some negative feedback on that, and people are explaining, and it's sad that you have to explain to your government that these weapons are used for hunting purposes. A shotgun, a 12 gauge, 20 gauge, whatever, they're used for hunting, you know? And they're for the people having to register their rifles. And, you know, in Canada, you can have a pistol, but you can't have a pistol, if that makes sense. You can own one, but it has to be unloaded, locked, and stored away. And I'm not going to try to get into any politics. I'm going to leave that to somebody else that knows a lot more about it than I do. But it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to let you have one, but you can't use it, you know? And the only people that have pistols in Canada legally are the RMCP, RCMP, whatever it is, and the military. Average citizens possess long guns. They don't have pistols. And there's some guys that don't quite see eye to eye with the law up there, and they have their pistols. But they're registered. They are on a national firearm registry. So they know where you are, and they know where that pistol is at all times. It's kind of different up there, Brad.
Yeah,
it's kind of
like
different up there, man. I love
like
the people of Canada.
Yeah.
They're some of the finest folks you can ever be around. But they've let things kind of be taken from them as far as rights go. And all right, I'm going to stop on that note. We'll drop the political deal.
Yeah, because
I don't really want to go any further than that.
Yeah. Well, between the two of us, it might get heated. Yeah, you're wise man. We'll back off that. But definitely a different scenario up there. Now let's keep moving south. You start Canada. A lot of times you're going over to Montana. Anywhere else? Now I know you hunted Kansas,
Oklahoma and
Kansas. Now, was it Kansas? You told me a while back you were just slaughtering some ducks in flooded timber in Kansas.
Yes.
And I think I didn't mean anything by it, but I called you a liar because I've driven across Kansas and the state tree is a telephone pole, at least where I went through. And so you're telling me about stacking them and wagging them in Kansas. I was like, man, do tell. Let me hear about it. What was that?
Well, it's in southeast Kansas. It's on the Neosha River. And a very good friend of mine, Roy Carter, he sold that property, and I still don't understand that to this day, Roy. Please help me. But it was the only flooded timber in the state of Kansas that I knew of. Now, he made it. He put the time, work, effort, money into creating that mecca. And that's what made it what it was, man. It was just one of those secluded areas on the river that he did all the dirt work, all the levees, the pipes, the drains, the weirs. He did all that through the help of DU and Delta Waterfowl and Fish and Wildlife. And it just, there's a big public hunting area just north of him across the river. And they have a huge rest area, and that's their bloodline. Those birds, once they get in there and start staying on that rest area, those are the ones that trickle out and go into the fields that are close by. And of course, being the only place where there's flooded timber, they, for whatever reason, they like it.
Did it take them long to find it, or they find it pretty quick?
2 to 3 days. Once they get on that rest area, 2 to 3 days, they're in that timber.
Wow.
It's just like they have that. It's there.
Yeah.
They go back to it. They mark. They know it. And those things that, and I've said it for years now. They have the ability to navigate from one point to the next. And I think there are things along the way that keep them in check. And I think that river is one of those places that they know, and it's imprinted, and they keep going back to it. And once they get there, then naturally they start easing out, going to other areas and finding food and places to loaf or whatever. But he's got, or had, it was one of the finest places I've ever hunted, I was fortunate enough to help him run hunts for several years up there. 2 years ago, he just decided that it was time for him to make a move and said it. He just put it on the market. Didn't take long for him to sell it.
That brings a tear to a glass eye. Just hearing about it. Breaking my heart, Trey.
He called me and told me, I said, man, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. You're no longer my friend. But he's, I understand in a way why he did what he did. He was, Roy farmed. That was his living. He duck hunted for fun. He commercial duck hunted so he could duck hunt.
Yeah.
That paid for his habit of duck hunting.
Yeah.
And I guess he just got tired of farming. And none of he only has one son, but he wasn't interested in farming. He was sure interested in doing the hunting thing, but he didn't want to farm. So he just chose to let it go. And now I will say this. A year after he sold it, so this has been 3 years ago he sold it. So the next year he bought a piece of property on the other side of the river and developed it. And it's a much smaller place, and it's strictly fields with flooded corn. And they love it. It's 1 mile south of that refuge. And, buddy, it's just, again, it's one of those places that's magical.
Yeah.
It is magical.
Yeah. Now I saw you on TV a few times back when Drake had the Migration Nation show that they were doing. Now, what all did you do with that show? No, I saw you hosting a couple of episodes, maybe.
Yeah. When I first became involved, as a matter of fact, the first show that I did for Drake was at Roy's in Kansas. And we did 2 of those shows at his place, one year and one the next. And that was just as a guest host. J. Paul Jackson was the host. He couldn't make it out, so they asked me to just guest host. And David Weldon, Rob Watts came out and filmed it. And the next year, David called and asked if I could do it again, and I did. And then it just kind of snowballed. And one day, Tate Wood, one of the owners of Drake, called and asked if I'd come sit down and visit with he and Bobby Wyndham, the other owner. And they had decided to change the format to get more regional coverage. So instead of having one host, they had 5, and we were in different parts of the region, different parts of the country. Bill Saunders out on the west side of the country, Jeff Coates on the east side, Barney Califf up in Iowa, Todd Copley, and myself. And we kind of did our own flyweight thing, Atlantic, Pacific, Central, and Mississippi. And did that for 4 years. And with the way social media works today, they saw that they didn't really need to have a television show anymore because of social media.
Changed a lot of things.
It changed a lot of things. They got all their advertising done through social media for free, So
and a show is not cheap.
No, it's not. It is not. But I understand that. That's the business part of it. Now, do I like it? No. But hey, it's what it is.
Right.
And doing those television shows, what people see in that 22-minute segment on television, they have no idea what goes into that 22 minutes.
Yeah.
It's painful. It can be aggravating, irritating, and make you want to pull your hair out because you want to try to present the best shots from not only shooting birds, but everything else involved with it, the surroundings, the people, and to be able to present that in a 22-minute segment takes many hours of footage. And one of the things that I never envied David with having to do the editing on that. It's like, oh, man, wow. How do you keep what's good and there's still other good that's hitting the floor that you don't use.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to make he was good at it, and he still does it, but not with Drake.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed that. Got to meet a lot of great people all over the country, see a lot of cool places, and that's what I do, man. I'm a duck. I like to do what ducks do.
Yeah.
And that's over the years, it's brought me to where I am now. Not that I'm anywhere, but I went from
In life.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that I love to do. That's duck hunt and cook. And I've been in the restaurant business, duck guiding business. I prefer the duck guiding business a lot better.
Yeah.
The hours are about the same because you're going to start early in the morning and finish late in the evening regardless, but those are my passions, I've been blessed in both of those. I learned a lot in both.
Yeah. Well, take us back. I mean, how did this all start for you? Just hunting. You go back to your childhood. When did you start? How did you start? You start with your father, or what got you going?
Yeah. I was born in Greenwood, Mississippi, and my dad was an avid duck hunter when I was brought into this world. My brother, who's since passed, was a duck hunter, and it was my dad. And as I got older, the first time I ever went duck hunting, I was 5 years old. And, of course, sitting in the front of a flat-bottom boat, we went to McIntyre Scatters just out of Greenwood, and I was sitting in the front of a flat-bottom boat with a piece of burlap draped over it. And my dad they was cool. They used to do these metal buckets, 5-gallon buckets that they'd punch holes in the bottom, and they'd put charcoal in it and fire that charcoal up. Well, that was your heater.
Yeah.
That was before all this fancy stuff they got nowadays, but that was your heater. And I sat there in front of that boat, and Brad, the first time I saw him come in, back flapping, feet down in that timber, I was hooked, man.
It does.
I was hooked.
It does something to you.
It does.
It does.
That was my beginning, and of course, from that point, listen to them blow calls, and bring them to them. That was me. I mean, that's what I wanted to do, and I thank my dad for introducing me into that and teaching me the right way. And of course, he got me started learning how to blow a duck call. He joked for years that I cut my teeth on a PS old duck call.
I had one in my toy box growing up.
And I still got that particular call that he refers to. It was one of those. It was just a special thing to learn from him, and I was 7. And we moved from Greenwood to Newport, Arkansas, and man, that's where I really became involved with blowing a duck call. And I used to joke years ago, I played piano, and when I would get home from school, I had 3 things I had to do, mandatory, every day. My homework, piano lessons, and duck call. It's
Not necessarily in that order.
no,
Anyway.
no. I devoted a lot more time to the duck calling than I did my homework, and that's obvious. But it was my passion, man. It was my love. And at 9 years old, I entered the first duck calling contest I ever competed in Newport. It was the Jackson County Junior Duck Calling Contest, and I won. And I thought, man, I must be pretty good at this. I just beat a bunch of guys that are older than me. You know? And the following year, I blew in that same duck calling contest, and one of the gentlemen that was judging was a fellow by the name Chick Majors.
Ooh. Legend.
Yeah, absolutely. And after that contest, let me back up. I was blowing a Yinson double reed duck call. Okay. I had never blown a single reed call. And I got introduced to Chick after the contest, and he had one of his Dixie Mallards hanging on his neck on a little old thin lanyard, and he took it off of his neck and put it on mine. As a matter of fact, I think the picture I sent you shows that call around my neck.
Gives you chills, right? I think about Chick Major taking one off his neck, putting it on yours.
Hey, that was one special dude.
What was he like? Tell me about Chick.
Very soft-spoken, but it's kind of like, the old E.F. Hutton commercial. When he spoke,
you listen.
You needed to listen.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't going to BS you. He was just straight with you every day. And I keep going back to a description that I heard Sophie, his widow or wife, they're both gone now, of course, but she kept referring to him as a gentle man. And that word stuck with me, and still to this day, I considered him one of the most gentle men I've ever been around. So willing to help. And he'd light a fire under your butt too, but that's what got me really pushing harder to be better. And it was, life lessons along with learning how to blow a duck call.
Yeah.
That's what I really loved about it. It wasn't just about a duck call. Mm-hmm. It was other things in life.
Yeah.
And I think he had that effect on anybody that came across him, man. He was just genuine. Mm-hmm. And I love him. And I'm so thankful I had the opportunity to spend with him and to learn and to know what it really meant, not only to him, but his whole family, as you know, with Brenda, Dixie, Pat, Eddie, Charlie, and I'm talking Holtz and Majors and Cahill, Don Cahill. Those were all his family that did the same thing. They loved to blow duck calls. They loved to hunt. And then, of course, Eddie Holt, being a 3-time world champion and champions, was instrumental, along the way. I learned a lot from Eddie at the same time. And
Eddie never lost, didn't he? Was he the guy that never lost a contest?
He's pretty dominant, man.
I'd say so.
He was pretty dominant. And that, again, that was a learning experience for me to not only learn how to blow a duck call, but how to be a good person. Right. Now, a lot of that didn't adhere. I didn't take a lot of that to heart at the time. I was a young, dumb kid, It took me later in life to understand some of the things that they were talking about.
Yeah.
And I always go back to that saying, did your dad ever tell you, Brad, did your dad ever tell you that the older you got, the smarter he got?
Yeah, and it really pisses me off that he was right. I every day I have to think, yeah, Dad said it, and he's right.
Exactly. And that's, and my dad told me that, and I'm like, what do you know? But, man, was he right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I go back to being able to, at that age, being so young and being influenced by people, genuine people that loved people and loved doing what they did. And today, I try to my best to pass what I learned from them to the future generations. I've done it with both of my children. My son's 30 now. My daughter's 20. Will be in September. I wanted them to see what I saw, And, to be able to share those experiences and to know that they appreciate it. I mean, they both love to hunt. They come hunt with me every year. They're on the far side of the country, but they still manage to get together. We normally hunt between Christmas and New Year's each year. They'll come out and spend a week with me, and it doesn't matter if we shoot a duck or not. We're together, which is what matters.
You bet.
So that's another thing that I saw through Chick and Sophie and the Holtz, Charlie, Eddie, Dixie. Kids matter, and they love kids, and I'm the same way. I love kids. Now, there's some of them I'd like to slap, but for the most part, most kids are pretty good, especially if they've had a set of parents that help guide them the right way.
Right.
So that's, and I know I got way off the channel there, but I just, again, that knowing the people that I knew early in life had begun to develop me, and I didn't even know it at the time. And again, got older, those folks got smarter.
Let me ask you about another guy. You're kind of synonymous with another caller out there that not many people are going to recognize this name. If you look at the list of world champion duck callers, stuff like that, you're not going to see this guy's name. But I know when I was getting into competition and I would talk to some of the guys that had been there, done that, the guys that were helping me get started when I was just wetting my feet trying to learn.
Right.
You always ask that question, all right, man, who's the best that you ever heard? And this name came up several times in, when I don't care if I was talking to Rick Dunn, if I was talking to Butch Richenbach, talking to you, some of the other guys that I'm idolizing these guys. And that question came up. There was a man's name, Ronnie Wright.
Yes, sir.
I've had many people tell me Ronnie Wright was the best duck caller I ever heard in my life.
Hands down.
Yeah. Well, you agree. You agree with
Absolutely.
that assessment.
Absolutely.
So now, and Ronnie never won a world, and I was one of the he didn't, did he? I mean,
no.
One of the things I always heard, like Rick said, that man, he was head and shoulders above so many people, but like he put a routine together so complex, he might make a little bobble here or there, or he just kind of went over the judge's head a little bit and wouldn't win for whatever reason. But so many people said he was great. So man, tell me about your relationship with that man.
Well, all right. I was 13. My dad belonged to an organization here in Arkansas. It's called the Arkansas Duck Hunters Association. And my dad met Ronnie's dad, TL, through that organization. And then, of course, I got introduced to TL and Ronnie. And I didn't know anything about Ronnie, All I knew is he's a great big dude that could blow the heck out of a duck call. And the first time that the four of us actually went and hunted together, we went over to Hurricane, and that morning took that boat ride into the woods, and I witnessed something I'd never seen before. I heard something that I had never heard before, and I was like mesmerized. How does he do that? How does he do that? Mm-hmm. I mean, we're taught early on in a feed call, a tucka, digga, 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 dugga, dugga, whatever. Mm-hmm. That was out the window, buddy. This feed call I heard was like, holy crap. So I walked over to the tree where my dad, Ronnie and I were at one tree, and he and my dad and TL were at another. So I walked over to my dad. I said, why haven't I been taught how to do that? He said, son, I don't know how to do it either. So that's where my relationship with Ronnie began. And I told him, I said, I want to learn how to do that. And he said, well, you're going to have to come to the house. And Brad, on Sunday afternoons, I used to get on my Swin 10-speed bicycle, and I'd ride from our house about 5 miles to his house. And I'd be there for 2, 3, 4 hours every Sunday afternoon learning how to do that feed call. It took a while. It took a long time, actually, because it was different. And I used to get so aggravated with him because he would say, do it. And I'm like, I don't know how. Show me take the call away. Tell me, show me what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then once he began to show me what his action, and it's throat tongue, just complete throat tongue control. And once he showed me, I started picking it up more and more. And it's a funny story, I'll tell you. We went together. He was driving. I'm a passenger because I can't drive. I'm not old enough yet. So we went to Greenville, Mississippi to compete in a duck calling contest. They had a senior and a junior. And we won both, took the money and ran. And on the way back home, he told me, man, great job. I'm proud of you. You did good. You could have done this. You could have done that. I was like, here we go again. Good enough's not good enough, is it? But anyway, I jokingly told him, I'm coming after you. And he just smiled. He said, and I'm ready for you. Good deal. And, man, that was just, we hunted together. We went to duck calling contests together. We did a lot of things together outside of that. But those times that I got to spend with him, I got to learn so much from his views of how to blow a duck call. Mm-hmm. And in 1976, I had taken all I could gather from him, and I went to Stuttgart. And this is a crazy story, man. I had one heck of a birthday weekend. I went down Friday night and competed in the second annual Chick Majors Memorial. And I'm a senior in high school, that's all it was open for. If you weren't a senior in high school, you couldn't compete in it. So they had a scholarship in Chick's name as an award or prize, and I wanted that prize.
Yeah.
Not strictly for me, but for Chick. Mm-hmm. And I won that night. And then Sophie told me before I left to go back home, she said, come back tomorrow. You need to blow in the state. I said, okay, I will, So I was 16 years old that Friday night. The next day, my birthday, the 27th day of November, I went to Stuttgart. I registered, got in the state contest. I don't know how, but it was all over. I won.
16 years old.
It's on my 17th. It's on my 17th birthday. So
okay.
That qualified me to compete in the World's Contest. Well, my father was a huge Arkansas Razorbacks football fan, or Razorback fan, football, basketball, but it didn't matter. He loved the Razorbacks. And the Razorbacks were playing Texas A&M in War Memorial Stadium that Saturday night. And the last thing he told me when I left, son, you need to be at the stadium at 3 o'clock. I said, okay. Of course, I had no idea that I would win the state contest, so no problem. So I went, and then I won, and then a fellow by the name of Chris Robinette used to be the Chamber of Commerce director, or whatever that title is. He came to me after it was over. He said, man, you're on a roll. You need to blow in the world. And I just looked him straight in the eye and said, Chris, I got to go to Little Rock, man. My dad's got tickets for the football game. I got to go back to Little Rock. And he said, oh, no, no. He said, call him. I said, man, I'm going to tell you, there's nothing that's going to change his mind. He said, give me his phone number. So this, of course, years before a cell phone, and landline. So I gave him the number. And he called. My mother answered the phone. He told her who he was and said he'd like to talk to my dad. So my dad got on the phone. And, I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like, Mr. Crawford, this is Chris Robinette, this is Chamber of Commerce. just calling to let you know that Trey has won the Arkansas State contest, which qualifies him to blow in the world tonight. And my dad's exact words were, tell him to get in that truck and be at War Memorial Stadium at 3 o'clock. And it was like noon. It was 12 o'clock, maybe 1. And Chris was adamant. And he said, Mr. Crawford, he needs to blow in the world. He's qualified to blow in the world. He needs to blow in the world. And I guess in that conversation, it convinced him to sell those tickets and come to Stuttgart.
Wow.
And, man, I got on that bus. This is, of course, back when we had an actual school bus we got on.
And the bus is where you went backstage then for the contest.
Yes,
yeah.
There was no nice, warm, confined area. You just sat on a school bus. Well, it was cold, mist and rain, nasty, and I remember sitting on that school bus in the very back, looking up and seeing the guys that I idolized, that former world champions, Mike McLemore, people, Jeff Williams, people that, again, I idolized. And I'm just a snotty-nosed punk kid that, in their eyes, probably didn't belong on that bus, but plans were different, man. And, I to this day, I don't understand how it all happened, but it was just, I guess it was meant to be. But let me go back. I was sitting on the bus, and the only clothes I had was a long sleeve shirt and jeans. I didn't even have a sweater or a jacket or nothing. And I had told my dad when he finally decided to come to bring me my coveralls, or ask him to bring me my coveralls. Well, we haven't drawn numbers yet, and I hear this knock on the front door of that bus, and I don't remember. I think it was Sonny. Opened the door, pulled the lever, and opened the door, and I saw those coveralls fly in, and heard my old man say, "Give those to Trey." So they passed them back to me, and I leaned over out the window. I said, "Thanks, Dad." He's looking at me like, "I'm not done with you." So I went through the first round, did okay, felt good about it, but, wasn't exceptional, and made the cut. I saw some cats get off that bus that were strong, Yeah. Wow, wonder what they did. So
and you're still in it.
I'm still sitting on it, And then after the second round, again, I'm sitting, they're leaving. What's this about, And I'm kind of overwhelmed, but I'm also in the back of my mind thinking, this could happen. This
possible.
Could happen.
Yeah.
Anything's probable. So I don't know. I upped my game on that last round and blew the doors off of it, or felt like I did, Then they were down to the last 6, and they called us out, got us on stage, and started naming 5th runner-up, 4th runner-up, 3rd runner. They didn't call my name yet. And it got down to me and Mike McLemore. I said, "Well,
how many times had Mike won at
he
that
had
time?
won twice." And I said, "Well, here's number 3 for him."
Yeah.
They called his name first runner up, and dude, I started crying. And I'm thinking, this is a dream. Somebody pinch me, wake me up. This can't be happening. But of course, Justin Wilson. That's another thing. Justin Wilson, the old Cajun coon-ass cook that told all the crazy wild stories. He was the MC of that contest, and when he found out, somebody screamed out, "It's his birthday! It's his birthday!" So he had everybody on the street singing "Happy Birthday" to me, And I'm standing there with that trophy, thinking, again, this is a dream. This is not happening. And when it was all said and done, we went to the chamber. We did that little interview deal. And when I came out of there, my parents were standing there, and Sophie was standing there. And, man, it'll bring tears to my eyes to even say what I'm going to say. But she grabbed me before my parents could and squeezed me. She's a little bitty woman like my mom. And she grabbed me and squeezed me, and she said, he's popping off every button. And I didn't understand what she said. But I still gave that big hug and kissed her and told her thank you, you know. And after talking with my folks for a while and celebrating a little bit with some friends, that stuck in my mind. So I called her the next day. I said, Miss Sophie, I got to ask a question, and I just don't want to be dumb, but what did you mean? She said, well, I asked her what she meant by saying popping off every button. She said, Trey, Chick, if he was wearing a jacket right now, he would expand his chest in such pride, it would pop every button off.
Oh, wow.
Dude, I'm getting teary-eyed now just thinking about it.
Oh,
That's
wow.
that's what it meant to her, and that's certainly what it meant to me, because I felt that connection, you know. I felt that connection. And to go in as just a kid from North Little Rock and win the Chick Majors Memorial Friday night, win the state Saturday morning, and the world Saturday night, I mean, close, end of story. This deal's a wrap, you know, and I didn't even know that I had just begun.